Welcome to our Dad's Vendor Series here with the Stark County ESC and SPARCC. We are here today with our friends from Edmentum. If it's okay with all of you, I'd kind of like to kick it around. That way you can introduce yourself to all of our people, and then we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation for this afternoon.
That sounds
Barbie,
great.
do you want to start?
Sure, I will start, have a little introduction for everyone, and if you'd like to add anything after, that would be great too. So thanks for joining us today. We are having us today. We at Edmentum are dedicated to helping create a world where educators succeed and students thrive everywhere learning occurs. I am your partnership manager. I have a master's in elementary education and 15 years teaching experience in Chicago public schools before transitioning into educational technology. John Reckinger is our regional sales director. Jen McCutchen is joining us today as your customer success manager. She has extensive experience in the classroom and at the administration and director levels in her former school districts, as well as a long history with Edmentum, and she's currently working towards her doctorate. Beth Morford, who herself has a background in special education, school administration, and director positions, will be taking you through our courseware program today. Courseware is a comprehensive, engaging online courseware product that is aligned to state and national standards, 21st century learning, skills, and virtual learning best practices. Edmentum courseware is a best-in-class solution to address a wide range of educational needs across the educational market. And with that, I will pass it over to Beth.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify a few things. I know that there's a few districts currently using courseware, I believe, in this account. And so we want to just kind of make it aware for everyone and just kind of give this demonstration of what courseware is for grades 6 through 12. If they've never seen it, this is just an opportunity to have that visual insight to a student account and a teacher account. Is that correct? Okay, just to make sure I cover the right things.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so I will share my screen. I'm gonna do entire screen because I need the PowerPoint and all that stuff. So let's hit share. All right, so can you see this PowerPoint?
Sure can.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna cover a couple things. I don't really use decks very much, but for those of them who are new to courseware, it's kind of important for me to make sure that I don't skip this part. Courseware for 6 through 12 can be used in a variety of ways, and myself as a former statewide digital curriculum director in Arizona, there are so many great uses for particular students when it comes to digital, virtual, remote learning, however we want to call it and however we want to use it. So it's good for first-time credit. It's good for credit recovery, unit recovery before they actually need the credit recovery. We have the opportunity to build our own courses. So we can go into that and we can show how easily it is to pull from one class a unit, another course that we have a unit, or maybe your teachers have their favorite units that they've always used, but they want the curriculum piece, but they want to add their own activities. So that's something that's easily able to slide in. And once you create courses, they will stay. So it's not like every year you need to reinvent the wheel. Just like teaching normal, like once we kind of have our favorite things in the brick and mortar, or if it's all digital, we are able to switch things up easily when it's online, as well as keep the pieces that we like very much. We have a very full library, hundreds of courses to choose from, and I do have that library pulled up, and I'll pull it up in a second. I just don't want to make sure I get lost here. And then to make sure that when we talk about courseware, sometimes it has this, well, it's just credit recovery. It's just for these students. And again, I hope that I made it clear that it doesn't have to be, and that it can be used in a blended learning scenario. So if a teacher really likes the curriculum that is here, but wants to use it with their students who are in person, or maybe there's a flex opportunity where they can read the curriculum at home, but then come to school, kind of that flipped classroom model, and then come to school and do some activities together. So there's a lot of ways, if we just think about courseware as curriculum, as a textbook, back in the day when we had those, and just to see, like, what could I do if I was a teacher? What could I do with all of this content? I can manipulate it. It works well with all students, and it is aligned to your standards. So just wanted to really start with that. I am going to, here is your course catalog aligned to your state standards. We can send you this when it's finished, or when we're finished, but it's all of the core areas. We have a lot of CTE options, and then we get into world languages, health and fitness. There's AP options, and then career and readiness, as well as health and PE. And we have middle school electives and core. Lots of different ways to use courseware, and just a lot of different courses. So I wanted to point that out, aligned to you, and we can send you this when we're finished. So with that, I will first go into, I'm going to first actually go into the student view. I would like to start there first. Are there any questions before I get started?
I don't think so. This has been wonderful thus far. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to go in as a student. You can use this with any SS or single sign-on that you might have, or students can use a username and password. And as long as they have internet, they're good to go. So when they log in, this is a kind of a refreshed page over in the last year and a half or so. It's much easier. I think it's really nice for students. It's easy on the eyes. It's very clear of what they need to do and where to locate things. So as a student, and this would look exactly the same for anyone in 6 through 12, up at the top is their homepage where all of their courses might be. They can email their teacher. There's a place for notes, and then they can sign out. They can also create a portfolio report if they wanted to. But then here we have our courses. So this particular student is able to see we've got biology and this CTE course and English. And right away, they're able to see the color of this person. And this helps them know, am I on pace? Am I off pace? But when we go into the course, they're really going to have that visualization of, how am I on track? Am I keeping on track? And we give a suggested target date. Sometimes we don't like to call them due dates. We call them target dates. So when I go in, I will show you what that looks like for the student when they see it. But this is just right away. If they log in and they're like, what do I need to do first? We're going to go into the one that's on pace, but they would see kind of where they need to focus their attention first. But when we click on a course, the student is going to get to see their grade right away. That's important because a lot of times with virtual learning or remote learning, they are given a lot of information at one time, and sometimes they don't know how far they are. Sometimes they assume that they have forever to do this course. So we want to, when teachers create a start and an end date, what it does is it creates what we call target due dates based upon the start and end date that is in this particular section. They can see their current grade versus their course grade. And students start to understand that the current grade is, okay, the quality of work that I've turned in so far, I'm doing well. This sometimes throws them off, but this just means everything else in the grade book, if you can see a grade book, is a 0. It's a 0 until you turn it in, which is normal, but oftentimes they don't see that when it's on a teacher grade book. So they get to see eventually those two numbers connect. How far on pace they are, their total time on task. And then with every course, there's a student orientation and a syllabus. So that is always going to be the same. These are the same for each, the orientation is the same. How does the course structure work? What does it look like? It's very quick, but once they see it once, they don't really have to do it much again. and then there'll be a syllabus provided to them. There are units within each course. Now you'll notice here that unit 2 is actually hidden, but that's because the teacher hid it for them, right? So we didn't want to overwhelm them. This is just a sample of the ways that a teacher is able to hide specific units or assignments per student if they don't want them to get overwhelmed. So a student is able to see, here are what I need to work on, and based upon the color coding, what am I in progress, and possibly what might be past due. And that would be in a red color. So they get to focus on that. Each unit is made up of a pre-test and a post-test. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then within each unit, there's going to be a discussion question and an activity. Now, we've got to have the meat of the course. We have to have that curriculum. So we call them modules. I like to call them chapters. It's really whatever you want to, it's the meat of the content. It's the course. So in each of the units, we're going to have the modules, the chapters. So here is the introduction, another piece, and then within each one, they're going to have the tutorial and a mastery test. So we learn, we have a quiz. We learn, we have a quiz. And based upon that information, we might also have the ability to go into an activity. It could be a discussion question, or it might be a unit activity for cells, something like this for biology. A unit activity, the discussion questions, everything is customizable. So for an example, you have a student who may not do very well independently on an activity such as this, or on a discussion question. But you know as a teacher that if I hide that discussion question for that student and I ask them to come and talk to me about it instead of typing a response, I'm going to then be able to go into the grade book and give them a really good grade because they gave me a lot of content, maybe more than they would be able to write. When it comes to the activities, maybe we have a teacher who wants to do the activities together in class. And it depends on your situation. It depends on if it's all remote. It depends if it's blended learning. It depends on if it's virtual, but we can do like a synchronized lesson with our class. So again, everything is interchangeable, customizable. But when we talk about just regular, like what is it that we have pre-packaged, it is it's a full semester's worth of work. The pre-test is something that usually I would say is for credit recovery. When a student takes a pre-test and they have the opportunity to do so, if they receive an 85% or better on the modules, then they're exempt. So this would be more of a credit recovery situation if they don't necessarily, if they've taken the course and they don't need every aspect of it, they have a way to test out because they can prove mastery in the pretest with an 85%. So this is an option as well. And then at the end of every course, there is an end of the semester test. I'm going to go into what this looks like, but this is the general structure of all of our courses. Again, we can hide them for students so they don't feel so overwhelmed. Like I have all of this work to do. They can chunk it in pieces. They can hide, they can omit, and they can replace activities. So if we go into, let's take a look at what it looks like for the actual content. So we go into the tutorial. And this is what courseware looks like for anyone in 6 through 12. It's more of a slideshow mode. We don't want to overwhelm with a ton of text. We don't want to overwhelm with all videos. So what we do is we make sure that the courses have multiple ways of learning. So there's text, there's drop and drag, there's very short videos, no more than 4 minutes. There's checking for understanding. So there's different ways in this tutorial, in this chapter, that the students work and learn, but yet it doesn't take a teacher to grade it. So everything in the tutorial does not require teachers to grade for them to continue moving forward. So let's take a look. They're going to get the introduction. They're going to get the objectives. They're going to get the table of contents. And it might start off with a checking for understanding question. It might be like, what do you know about this? So the student will type in their answer and they will submit. And then hopefully the student will say, oh, that's kind of close to what I was thinking, right? Or if not, and they had no idea, this will give them the answer. So we want to make sure that if we were in a regular classroom, brick and mortar, the teacher's teaching a lesson, they ask a question and they provide feedback. Here is the feedback to keep them on track. So we can just keep going, and then it might say try again, or you get it correct. And then a video, and then to actually see the content, here is what the text would look like. Over here to the left, this is probably one of my favorite parts about courseware, is they have this toolbar for every student. No one needs to be identified on an IEP or a 504 or an EL student. It is set to be this way, so everyone has access to the tools. And the toolbar has the table of contents. It has a place for notes, and these will always stay here. So when a student reviews these 37 slides for their quiz after this module, those notes remain. Or if they're at the end of the unit, all of their notes will remain. My favorite part is what we have in this folder called guided notes. Guided notes are available for every core class. There's also answer keys. So if a student has an accommodation, let's say where they're provided notes, they can have the ones that have the answer key. But I really like the guided notes because sometimes, most of the time, we tell students to take notes, but we don't know what to take notes on. So this guides the students as they go through the module and what to take notes on. They can save this, and then depending on the district's philosophy on using notes on quizzes or not, it's a way for them to study and just kind of do that tactile way to transfer the knowledge onto paper. So those are available in all of the core courses. There's a glossary available, and then we have a dictionary, and then we have the text to speech. This can be on or off. They can turn it on and it'll just automatically read through it, as well as highlight it, and it will highlight the words as it also reads to them. The translation tool that we have, it is where you copy and paste, and there's over 19 languages to choose from. And when we translate it, it's going to populate down here. It does not, it's a question I always get is, well, will it speak it to them in their native language? And it will not, but it will provide it in print. Calculators are provided for the appropriate class. So one class might need this calculator, another might need a more advanced calculator, but whatever is necessary, that's going to be provided in the toolbar so that no other manipulatives or anything else is needed to finish this course. It's all provided to the student digitally. Same as graphing tools. And then if a student likes to highlight as they read, that will stay when they go back and study. If this does this for me. When they highlight, it will highlight for them, and then it'll be able to keep it for them. I don't know why it's not highlighting right now, but that will stay as they click through, and then they are able to see that as they review the content. When a student saves and exits, it's going to pick up right where they left off. So they don't have to search for what slide was I on, or where was I, or are my notes there? It's all going to be exactly where they left off. So this is just, I'm going to click through a view of the content, and I know you have a couple of districts who use this, but for those that don't, it's very easy to give them access for a trial. It's called guided access, where they can look at the curriculum and go through it to see it's always important for teachers to view the curriculum to see if it's appropriate.
Beth, may I bother you with a question real quick?
Please do.
So you had mentioned there a moment ago about the notes and the guided notes, and if the district policy allows it, the student can use it. As a student is taking a quiz or the end of semester type exam, are they in like a lockdown browser environment when that happens, or is it just up to the academic integrity of the student to not use those?
Correct. It is up to, sometimes people use GoGuardian if it's virtual. Even if it's in a lab setting, I have seen, teachers have every single computer up on a screen where they can watch to make sure they're not opening other browsers. I think it's, from my experience, I mean, the short answer is no. It is, you can Google, you can open up other things. Unless something changed that I'm not aware of, team, let me know. But I think it's really building that culture of please don't cheat, right? Having teachers monitor the classroom, or if it is fully virtual, that if you need to have people watch them take the test, then you can have them watch them take the test. That's not always ideal, but that is an option. Sometimes when we give them the option to use their notes, they don't feel that they have to open up another browser.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure. Any questions on the student view? The format, keeping them on target?
I don't think so. I think, it's all really well laid out and very easy to visualize for the students.
Good. Okay. So let's go into a teacher account. So we're gonna do the teacher account, and then we can do the customized. We can look at the customized course version in a little bit if we want to see how easy it is to drop and drag over. When we talked about the different ways to use courseware, we have courseware here, which is a regular course. If we have a customized course, if we have a unit activity or a unit recovery, anything that has actually been created and posted and assigned to the student, it's going to be listed as a course by the teacher. Flex assignments, just really quick, this is a way for a teacher to say, so-and-so or a group of my students are really struggling maybe on one topic, right? Just like we need to do a little bit of reinforcement when we teach. So with a flex assignment, you can have as many classes as you want. You can set them up by student. Let's say you're a learning specialist and you have 15 students on your caseload, ideally. You could have a class for every student, and every time you make a very quick assignment, it just kind of collects in there, or you can do it by subject matter. The point of this is to say, I'm noticing that students are struggling on a particular topic in algebra. So when that happens, or whatever course we're in, they give it a name, they drop over their students, but they get to pick from the entire library of courses. So if we have, let's say Algebra 2 Semester B, here we're going to get that entire course. I don't know if you can see that. This is the entire course of what we just saw for biology. This is the whole thing. But if I was in Unit 1 and I'm noticing right off the bat that we're kind of struggling with exponential equations, I can drop and drag that assignment over here and we can work on it together, or we can reinforce it. So courseware is not just the courses, but it's also the ability to create a quick flex assignment, which appears in the exact same place. Let me get to the home page. If they were assigned a flex assignment, it's going to be right here. So anything that is given to them, it's all in the same place for a student. So that's just a way to highlight. I wanted to make sure that I highlighted the flex assignments. So going back into courseware for a teacher, is your currently or in do the teachers teach maybe a lab full of many different content courses, right? So somebody's assigned to 7th hour, but we could have 15 students in there and they're all taking a different subject.
So in some of our member districts, yes, that's the case. In some of them, it's, separated where this teacher is in charge of all of the math classes, or this teacher is in charge of all of the, American history classes. So we're kind of a mixed bag, a little bit of everything. Every district does it a little bit differently.
Great. Okay. So I wanted to point this out, that this would be an example of when somebody is assigned multiple subjects. So we have an academic success course, we have algebra, we might have a biology, and then we're going to be able to see all of the courses that we've been assigned to. And right off the bat, we can kind of see like the pace of my students, just like it was for the student, but this is for the teacher to see how many students are behind, on, off, ahead of pace, and how many have turned in an assignment. As a teacher, when you teach virtually, if I had never seen this before and I saw this, I would be like, how do I know who is where? What have they done? Have they turned in any assignments? Are they progressing? So here, first glance, it allows the teacher in charge of this course to know, who do I need to focus on? Who's doing okay? And who's turned in an assignment that I actually need to grade? So if we kept the discussion questions, if we kept the course or the unit activities, or you created some of your own, there's going to be a little clock that's like, hello, it's also an active tasks. I don't want to get too nitty gritty, but this alerts the teacher to know that there is something for them to grade, because during the modules, I mentioned that the computer grades everything, and it does. So as the child goes through the content, the checking for understanding kind of works itself out. Drop and drag activities work themselves out, because it will provide them the correct answer if they get it wrong. But the actual activities, those need to be teacher graded. So not a lot of grading, it's management, right? How are they doing? How are they keeping on track? And how can I help them? So easy access to reports and to the grade book. So going in as a teacher, I'm going to have easy access here again to the grade book, to the curriculum. And I can see, here are my students. Here are they progressing. Again, the same student who turned in 2 things and is waiting for me to grade them. And then if I wanted to go into an individual student, I'm going to be able to get a lot of information. Every time they complete something, I'm going to see how much time was spent. If I want to look at that module, remember how I said that the computer does grade it all, but like, how long did they take to do that module? What were the answers that they typed into those text boxes? I can go in and I can look. I can look to see those master, even though they're automatically graded, I can look to see how they did by viewing it. So this gives the teacher a way to really get inside of the student performance, how they're doing and what they're doing. But this is a way for them to see big picture of the progress, where they're getting stuck. And here's an example of the pre-test that was taken. And if they received an 85% or more, I know that this student is exempt, and these 3 items will not be even a possibility on the grade book. It's just not even going to be counted. It's not a 0. It's actually 100% that factors in, but they're exempt from that. And if anything is locked, that means that the student, the teacher needs to go in and unlock it for them to retake it. So a situation would be if I had a student who had a locked mastery test after their unit, right after their work, I would probably go back and I would say, do you have any notes? Have you gone back through it? Did you get stuck on something in particular? And then you can unlock it for them and have them retake it. And the options of how many times you want the students to be able to take a mastery test is up to the teacher. That can be a district decision, and so the teachers can follow whatever's being discussed. but the teachers have access to this curriculum. And so this is where, when I was saying they have options to hide or lock or omit, this is where they can do that. So they get a section, they come to their curriculum settings, and the first thing they do is they lock the end of the semester test. And you have your customer success manager here. She teaches everybody how to do this. You know, this is nothing that everybody has to remember, but I just want to give the highlights of teachers have control of making sure they don't just jump to the end. Or for mastery tests, I want them to lock it. I want to lock it. I want to make sure that they've done their notes or they really gave some effort into that. This is up to the teacher. Maybe with the discussion questions, I want to hide them all so kids don't see them, but I want to do it with them. So I'll still be able as a teacher to go into the grade book and plug in a grade. When we talked about unlocking mastery tests, you can set this. So if you want to set it for 2 or 3, however many times, we don't want it to be painful. But the good thing is they will get a new set of questions, and we just want to make sure that the teacher is saying, okay, this is locked, but how many attempts did you get? Do you have your notes and all things like that? So usually when the student does the curriculum and then they have the mastery test, if they did not get the amount that they needed to get for percentage-wise, the 85%, it will lock. And if you go back through the content, then it will unlock. Kids get the hang of that. So we want to make sure that they're just not clicking through the slides and taking it again. And then click, right? We want to make sure that there's academic integrity and that the teacher's checking in with them to say, I'm going to give you maybe 2 attempts. And then after that, I need to have a discussion with them to make sure that they have done their due diligence in understanding what they've read, or where can I help them, especially when it's math, something like that. So the teacher has the ability to lock, unlock, hide, omit. They can even switch around. If they are the teacher of record, they could say, you know what, I want this unit down here. Or I want the discussion question to be later down in the course. So they can do that. They can always see into the exact course if we wanted to teach synchronistically, or we needed to teach a full lesson and I wanted to use this in a blended learning model, I could pull up the actual curriculum and teach with it. So the teacher gets to see exactly what they do from their end. They don't have to have some separate login to understand what the students are working on. So that is the teacher. I'll quickly go to the gradebook too, just to give you an idea of the ease of the gradebook. So they can see their students. They can see if they need to, let's see the discussion question here. As I was mentioning, maybe I didn't want them to type their answer. I wanted to do that together. So what I can do is I can come in here and I can give them my own grade. Or I want to actually drop this score and it's going to remove it from their grade. So anything that is omitted or altered, dropped, if teachers have to take over, they're going to understand the history of this based upon this legend. So this is what it is for a teacher gradebook to keep track. Teachers can have, as we've talked about, more than one section. They can have 2 sections of the same course. One student maybe in the section of Algebra 1 here might have a window from August to December. It's maybe a typical, or September to December. It's a typical semester. They can have those dates. Another child in that same section might be doing a really condensed winter break unit recovery course or the full course, maybe summer. They don't have to have the same dates, but whatever dates are given to that child from the start date to the end date, it will adjust on that pacing calendar for that child. The teacher has access to the entire course catalog reports. So even though there's a lot of reports right here, they can also set up reports that are emailed to them. So every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Friday at 4 o'clock, I want this particular report emailed to me. So that's a nice thing to have as well. This is the teacher account, and I would like to see if there are any questions.
Beth, on one screen, we were looking at the student's progress through a particular course, and you had mentioned that, you know, we could jump in and see the student's actual work. Is that just their final answer? Or is that like, are we able to see like a revision history of what that student put in? Or do we just see like, this is the end product, this is what they submitted essentially?
Yeah, it's just going to be kind of like that final one. So this is a review mode, and I am looking at the student's work and the tutorial that they have done. So if I get to a point where there is a checking for understanding, I would be able to see the learner's answer, the answer key, and if it was unanswered. Typically, because it's a demo account, you would see what they did. And if they had a bunch of this, then the teacher's going to understand that they figured that part out. You know, so yeah, it's not going to give them like round one, they answered this and they came back and they did this, because as soon as they hit submit, it's going to give them the correct suggested answer. Now, if your question is, could they copy and paste that and put that in there? On a try again situation, they can, but on a fill in the blank, it's not going to matter.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good question. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we want to see how they did on a mastery test, that one's 100%, so we won't look at that one. But we can look at a pretest. We can give how did they do on their pretest. This is what a typical pretest or unit or end of the semester test looks like. It gives them how many questions, kind of what they got right, what they got wrong, so they can go through it. There are reader tools for the students. There's highlighters. We can have it read aloud as well here. So this is what a typical quiz looks like without all this part. But then the teacher can go through and see how they did on each of their questions. So that's what that kind of looks like. So we can see that they got number 7 wrong. How did they answer it? And remember when I said for that one student, this particular student, we didn't see unit 2? It's because I would say, you know, I have a student who gets very overwhelmed if we see an entire semester's worth of work just sitting there in front of us. They might shut down. So a teacher has the ability to go in and hide. And when the time is right, we can unhide it and then they'll have access to it.
Very cool. It's so user friendly. Very easy to pop around, you know, both on the student side and on that teacher side. It's really, really nice product.
Yeah, I think visually, the student platform and the teacher and the reporting features are very user friendly. And the last thing we need for teachers who are having to take on something or learn a new program, it can't be complicated, because it's just not going to work. And we know that. I've been around long enough in ed tech too to know that if it's too complicated, it's not going to get used. So we don't want that. Do you want me to? I can quickly show you what it looks like, the ease of customizing a course, and then I don't know what time we're at, but I should probably stop talking.
That's okay. This is all so wonderful. Thank you for taking the time to do everything.
Sure. So sorry about that.
Don't apologize. We're friends. Dogs, babies, whatever's happening. We're a friend to all.
Yeah. Note to self: don't have a glass door. Okay. So in the administrator portal, they can give access to teachers to be able to what we call custom course. So if that was necessary based on standards or based on preference, when they saw, maybe they looked at the biology course and they're like, yeah, I really don't love that activity. I want to put my own in. Or I have a student who doesn't necessarily need the full standards curriculum for that, but I need my own version. I don't want to call it the special ed version, but maybe it's just a version that is appropriate for that student. So when that happens, you can create your own course. So we'll just call it here and we'll do an elective course. And even though I titled it an elective, I'm going to have access to standards and I'm going to have access to courses. So if you want to search by standard and drop and drag that over, you can do that. I sometimes think it's easier to, if I'm working and building an elective, here are all of the electives courses. And when I open it up, maybe I want to have this chapter and this chapter. And then when I open it up, I don't necessarily want, that was an exam, unit 4. I will open this up and I'm going to say, I really liked this one, but not this one. So you can remove. This is kind of how simple it is to pick from. Maybe I want to do a creative writing assignment in here. So I can take this course activity because I really liked it and I can drop it over here. And then when we talk about adding your own information, you can add a document, you can add a Dropbox activity, a discussion question of your own, and then a web link. So anything that you wanted to add or remove, you want to add a post test or end of the semester test, it'll automatically generate any of the content we have here and create that post test or end of the semester test for them. So talking about unit recovery, if I just needed to bring over a particular unit of Algebra 1, and I know that now, right now it's February, maybe we've been in this semester for a month, let's just say, or 6 weeks. I know a student did not pass that first unit. I don't need to wait until May to see if they're really going to fail the entire course. I'm going to give them that unit again and see if I can help them now. So that's the purpose of just bringing over a particular unit and assigning it just for that student. When teachers build custom courses and they all agree on it, you can have a team of teachers working on one, you publish it, or you can save your drafts. And then year after year, if you need to edit it, maybe a standard changed and you need to just keep it updated, you can do that as well without having to redo the whole course. So that's custom course building. And so now I'm going to stop talking and see if I can find your faces, which I can't, but I can answer. There you are.
So one of the things I know, obviously we spend a lot of time on courseware. That's where I think the bulk of our member districts might be using. But I know that Edmentum also has many other products that districts might be interested in. Would you mind just doing a real quick run through of what some of those other ones are in case people are interested in doing more with Edmentum?
Absolutely. What a great question. You should work for Edmentum. So, so we have, I'm going to put this in two different kind of views. We talked about courseware. These are our, what we kind of content. So courseware is content. Digital curriculum is for K through 5. So that's our K through 5 option. But if we look here, we have, you're 6 through 12, K through 12.
Most of our districts are 6 through 12, but I like knowing just, the full scope of what could be done just in case people needed it for whatever reason. But yeah, typically our districts are kind of 6 and up. Sure.
So there is one that's missing here and it's called Apex. I'm not sure if you've heard of Apex Learning or, but we've acquired Apex. It's just another digital curriculum provider. I have the wrong visual up here, but they're another 6 through 12 content, and slowly we are moving everything over into courseware. So it's kind of not as important to mention that one, but it's just we acquired them because we wanted to combine two companies that had great content? And then how can we take the best of Apex, which is their electives and their AP options, move them into courseware? So courseware and Apex are the content for 6 through 12. That's the digital learning. Calvert is K through 5. Study Island and Exact Path, those are like the practice programs. So if I go back to that same platform, this is really important when we talk about Exact Path. Exact Path is on the same platform as courseware. Why this works well? Exact Path, if I can just get it as short as I possibly can. Students will take an assessment that we have 3, 4, 5 times a year. Based upon how they do, it's going to create individualized learning plans. So if you think of a teacher and they have a class of 20 students, everybody might be missing a different skill. Even if they're in 7th grade and they're missing a 3rd grade skill, doesn't mean they're missing all of 3rd grade. But it's going to, based on the assessment, it's going to pull that particular skill, give them a lesson and a practice and a quiz, and just reinforce what they haven't quite mastered, and so bring them up to speed. This can be more of an individual type learning. It can also be used for full class. There's a full library of content for teachers who are in grades K through 12. So there's a lot of, it's a K through 12 continuum. So if we need to reinforce a particular skill again, there's options in here and content to be able to do that. There's a lot to Exact Path, but I wanted to point this one out because it is on the same platform as courseware, which makes it easy for teachers and students. Anything else you guys want to add about Exact Path really quick? Study Island, this has been around for a very long time. It is more of a practice program. So while the other one is really teaching those skills, Study Island is also teaching those skills, but in a little bit different way, where it's more practice and getting ready for test prep. It has practice benchmarks for your state tests. Teachers can itemize and they can pick the items that they want students to work on. It's just a little bit different, kind of the same purpose in my opinion, but it's more of an assignment, like teacher focused. I'm assigning these skills. I want them to work on this, versus Exact Path is we're going to take where they are right now and we're going to go fill in those holes. And then Ed Options. This is an entire school, if you want it to be. If you have a student in courseware, I always like to point this out, a student in courseware, they're working at home or they're working at 2 o'clock in the morning because that's when they function best and they need help, we have tutors. So we have a tutoring option with FEV Tutor that is part of what we call our Ed Options Academy. Ed Options Academy goes from how much of your staff do you want to help control and how much do you need a full teacher? Sometimes schools during that COVID period of time, they needed help creating a full digital school. They needed an extension opportunity so we could provide those teachers of record. And even if you think of courseware with your existing schools, maybe you have one student at the whole district that wants to take French and nobody else does. You're not going to invest in a full 1 FTE teacher. So we can provide a certified teacher for your state to teach that one course. So these are all services that we have. And I do like the teacher idea for if you don't have an FTE or 1 FTE for somebody who wants a particular elective or wants a particular course. That's an option, as well as the FEV tutoring, which is one-on-one tutoring. It is not video. for safety purposes, but a student 24/7 can chat the tutor and say, I need help with this. And they also are then aligned to courseware. So it's a chat service and you pay for it, I think, by the hour. Like I'm going to purchase 100 hours. And then if they get used up across the district, that's kind of, I'm not the business side of that, but I believe that's kind of how it works. So lots of opportunities. I don't know if anything was super of interest to you, but I think if I was to highlight something extra, it would be exact path tutoring and an additional teacher if needed to be that teacher of record for a course that not a lot of students are taking.
And if I may add, Jen, if you want to just add a little bit about the CTE pathways and potentially using that teacher of record for completing those pathways. I know you and I talked about that with other districts as well. You're on mute. Jen, if you want to come off of mute, sorry.
Sorry, I had muted myself. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest benefits to me when we're talking about Ed Options Academy is that opportunity for school districts that are smaller in scale to be able to offer pathways to students where, let's say that a student is interested in veterinary science and you don't have that pathway in your school district. Kids can take our courseware courses. They can take 2 courseware courses at school, and then they could be a part of Ed Options Academy, take that 3rd class with a teacher there to be able to fulfill that pathway. And I think that opens the door to so many more kids in so many more pathways that might offer them, future career opportunities versus with what we're working with now. I was an administrator in a small school district, and we were constantly struggling to find ways to fill niches for kids based on their surveys of CTE pathways. To me, that's a lot of what keeps kids in school. And, something that they're interested in, that they feel good about, that they can see a future with. And so, to me, Ed Options Academy just opens up that doorway for kids to explore and to be able to fulfill those pathways so they can get that seal on their diploma and, really be prepared for the future. So that's how I've seen it work really well in a lot of smaller school districts in Ohio.
That's such a great idea too, like exactly how you said, for smaller districts, it's a wonderful pathway to help those students to learn more about a potential career. It's a great idea.
Are there any thoughts or other questions? You've asked great questions. Anything else that we can?
I don't think so. This has been
a follow-up or?
I'm gonna say if we had the, I have the full recording you had mentioned about the course list. I have been taking notes this whole time, so I'll attach those to the notes that I've taken. That way, anybody who's watching this in the future, you can access all of those things as well. But I sincerely want to thank you for coming and sharing. This has been wonderful. You 3 are delightful, and John was too, even though he had to jump off. But I really appreciate you taking the time with us today and sharing all the wonderful things that Edmentum has to offer.
Thank you so much. It was great working with you today, and thanks Beth and Jen for all that you shared.
Thanks, Beth. I learned a lot. Always do.
We all do, no matter how long we've been here.
Yeah.
Every time. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
All righty. Have a great day. Thank you so much.